It's the Clarence-Rockland Guide. I'm Derek Scott from Clarence-Rockland's Hot Country 92.5. We're joined by Eric Tremblay from New Beginning Church. Welcome to the Guide.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Your beginning is an interesting beginning and not your typical venture into religion. Let's talk about how your path changed completely from when you were young to who you are now.
That's the $1 million question, right? If you asked me, or you told me back then, if you told me back then that I was going to be a pastor, I would have laughed in your face. Because I grew up. I mean, I was a mess when I was a kid. Up until 19, I grew up in a kind of a rough childhood. My father was military, so we had to move a lot. We even moved 4 years in Germany and Lahr before the Berlin Wall came down, and it was hard to make friends, long-term friends. I hear people talking about, me and Chantal. We grew up, went to kindergarten together. I don't have that because I never stayed long in a place in a community. And so there was a void. My dad passed away when I was 13. So there was a desire to be accepted, loved. And I was looking for a male figure, a role model. And I was looking for it at the wrong places, hanging around with the wrong crowds. And it led me to, very dark places. My mom was a blessing. She was trying to raise two kids, working a job and trying to make ends meet. But my father, we had issues. He was an alcoholic. He was violent, and I'll spare the details. But it was very dark until 19 years old in my life.
Growing up, was there religion in your family?
I mean, we went to I went to Catholic school, mass, here and there, but it didn't mean anything for me, and it wasn't personal.
Explain what you mean by it wasn't personal.
Well, it was something everybody did, but it wasn't my choice in a sense. Like, it didn't mean anything. I had a lot of information about it, but there was no personal experience of it. So I would say I would say I love God, but really my actions said something else. There was a void there, and I didn't really understand it all. I would fall asleep in religion class. I would go to mass, and we were throwing elastics to people. And
You heard it, but you didn't feel it.
yeah, didn't feel it, didn't live it, didn't fully believe everything.
So how did things change?
Well, started hanging around with the wrong crowd, started doing drugs, starting getting into trouble with the law, ended up in prison. And in all, I did about 3 years in prison. And one time in my last sentence, I got into a fight with someone, and I was thrown in the hole. And I was in the hole for 3 days, and they didn't tell me when I was going to come out. And it was this sentence was in London of Godrich, Ontario. And they gave me a book. One of the guards gave me a book. It was called The Broken Chains of Prison by Ernie Hollins. And it was a bunch of testimonies and stories of organized crime, criminals, bikers who they confessed that they were sick and tired of being sick and tired and not knowing what's the purpose of life or their life. And but then somewhere down the corner, they had an experience, and they gave their life to Jesus Christ. And after that, you see that their life has changed. Some of them became fathers, businessmen, husbands, and now they're contributing to the society in a very positive way. And that really touched me. That really spoke to me that day. And I felt that what the decision they did, I needed to do myself too. But I wasn't ready to do that at that time.
You needed some encouragement. And to me, without getting too religious, I almost think that guard was an angel.
I would agree with you. I think he was a godsend for sure, because I needed that, and that's what began to change my life.
So once you were done with prison, how did your life continue to evolve? Because obviously your life has evolved tenfolds over the years.
Yeah, so we're talking about something that happened 25 years ago. I'm 44 now. But when I got out of jail, there was about another 2 years that happened of very dark. I got involved with drug dealers and all this, like gangs and Vanya and stuff like that. And it's at that time where I felt like I was in a personal crisis. I had all these friends, all this money, all the girls, all the stuff that I thought I needed and I wanted, but I was still feeling empty inside. And that's when I remembered what I read in the book, that I needed to cry out to Jesus for a second chance and just choose to not walk in that direction anymore. And that's when I did. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was November 2nd of 1999. I went in my room, closed the door, went on my knees, and I said, Jesus, now I'm serious. I want to change. Would you come into my life and forgive me of all my sins? And at that point, I know it's not the experience of everybody, but for me, I felt like 1,000 pounds were lifted off my shoulders, and I started crying like a baby. And from that day on, I started reading my Bible every day, and then eventually I started joining a church. And that's, eventually that's where I felt the call to become a pastor.
So when you joined this church, was it something specific about that church that called you to that church? Because there's so many churches,
Right.
so many faiths out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
What was it about that one church where you felt comfortable and I guess in a way safe to open up to the experience of going to this church?
That's an excellent question. I grew up Catholic, so when I gave my life to Jesus on November 2nd, 1999, I didn't know anything else but Catholic. So I went for 8 months to a church in Orleans, St. Joseph Catholic Church, for 8 months. I even went there Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays. They had prayers during the week. I went there because there was a hunger and I felt something real. I didn't know at the time what it was, but I was starting a relationship with Jesus Christ. It was more than head knowledge. It was an experience. But I was feeling all alone. I was feeling even the church members were there and they're looking at their watches, running outside after Mass. And I felt all alone. I felt like I'm the only one who experienced this born again renewal kind of experience. And when somebody found out I experienced this, a Christian, I've met somebody. He started introducing me a Baptist church, a Pentecostal church, an evangelical church. And then when I got to this church, it was called Community Pentecostal Church on St. Joseph, I felt home. I mean, it wasn't like there was nothing special about the service. I just felt home. I felt good here. I felt safe there. And the preacher was probably in his 70s, and he was just opening the Bible, and he was sharing from the Bible. But there was something there that just I said, yes, I want to stay here. And I've stayed there until I received a call to become a pastor.
So tell me how you got the call to become a pastor.
So this church did a short-term mission trip in Pamplona, Spain. We were helping out a missionary that was starting a church in that city. And, we were about 12, 14 people that went there. And all the time he was asking me to share my testimony every single night in the parks and just share my testimony. And during that 2 weeks, that's where I felt, I looked at my pastor and I said, what do I got to do to become more like him? I want to be exactly like him. I love what he's doing. He's doing the ministry. He's doing the gospel work. He's sharing Jesus with people. And I said, that's what I want to do. And that's why he encouraged me to go to Bible college. And I went to Bible college in Montreal. And that's also where I found my wife. And so I got 2 for 1. I went there for theology, and I came out with a wife. That's pretty cool.
That's phenomenal. Phenomenal for sure. So how did you go from schooling in religion to where we are now in Clarence-Rockland?
So this church in Orleans that I gave my life to the Lord at, they asked me if I would be interested in starting a church in Rockland because they had members in Rockland going to Orleans all the time. And it just felt like there has to be something that's local, that meets local needs, and that reaches local people. And they asked me if I would want to be part of that. And I said yes. And so that's where me and my wife, we moved from Montreal to Rockland in 2009. And that's where we started with a group of people. We started New Beginning Church. And here
New
we are.
Beginning Church obviously has grown over the years. It started off where?
Oh, at that time we were renting. So we rented like school gyms like Carrefour Jeunesse. Then we went in the Optimus Hall. We then had a little bit of money to rent commercial space. So we went near the MMM on Laurier Street. And then we were able to rent space upstairs of in the Plaza, Royal Plaza on La Porte Street. And then eventually we were able to buy our own place.
Have you seen the church grow over the years?
Yes, because there's a hunger and a thirst for something real and something genuine. People are hungry for spirituality. I think there's a hunger for Jesus. Some of the people I talk to, they just have a hard time with the church.
And I imagine you've seen so many people who have had the same background as you have. The sense of emptiness, the sense of my life's going nowhere. I need a purpose.
Absolutely. There's many people. What's interesting, though, is that, I feel like I went to the rock bottom, but we've got people that are, very smart, high IQ, good jobs, successful business people. And then you got people like me who reached the bottom. And so this is good for anyone, really.
It's got to be rewarding and good for you because you're giving back, right?
Yes.
Someone, the church, religion in general, saw it in you that you were a good person. You just needed some redirecting. And now you get to pay it forward by offering the same.
Yeah. I think what helps us keep going is to see the transformed lives and people changing. They give Jesus a chance, and Jesus helps people change their life.
And New Beginning Church is very open, is very opening and very welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. We got people from different generation, different cultures, different backgrounds. And I think it's part of also of Rockland just growing. It's a community that's just growing. Lots of people are moving here. So we're meeting new people every time. So it's just, it makes it fun too.
Eric Tremblay from New Beginning Church, thanks very much for being a part of the Clarence-Rockland Guide.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.